I'm the school's well-known bootlicker for love. In order to win over my dream guy Mark, I was at his beck and call, constantly trying to please him despite his cold responses. I confessed my love to him more than 20 times, but each time ended in failure. It was not until the day my dad drove me to school in a Rolls-Royce that he agreed to give it a try with me. Later, I accidentally got pregnant and became a full-time housewife. He then annexed the company's shares and ended up in bed with my best friend. My dad was so enraged that he died, and I was kicked out of the house, eventually dying a tragic death on the street. When I opened my eyes again, I was back before the confession. The knife stabbed into my abdomen. Bright red blood kept gushing out of my body. I felt as if my body was being torn in half. I was really unwilling. If only I could live my life again. When I opened my eyes again, I was back before my first confession to Mark. My best friend Ella was busy picking out a dress for me. "Don't worry. I'll make sure you look gorgeous. Mark will fall in love with you at first sight and be hopelessly in love with you," she said. In my previous life, I was admitted to university with a top 10 grade in my class. But I spent all day chasing after Mark, skipping classes and failing exams, thus wasting my studies. After being rejected for the first time, I wanted to give up. However, with Ella's constant encouragement, I kept trying despite repeated failures. At that time, I thought she was the only one in the world who understood me. Now, I stared at myself in the mirror. There were exaggerated thick eyeliner, deaf Barbie pink lipstick, and blush that seemed to cover my whole face. I was wearing an ill-fitting bright pink dress. I looked comical and ridiculous, just like a clown on a drama stage. In my previous life, with this makeup on, I held a large bouquet of roses and stopped Mark on his way to class to confess my love. Naturally, heading to him.I, I was rejected. And even my photo was taken and posted on the school forum. They gave me the nickname, Rose Killer. And I became the laughingstock of the whole school. Facing Ella's hypocritical compliments, I just wanted to strangle her. "I don't think this dress suits me," I said expressionlessly. "How could that be? You really look good in this," she said. Then, he let out a low sigh. Afraid that I would change my mind, she quickly added, "I've made inquiries. Mark likes this style. If you don't like this one, we can change. I picked these all for you carefully." I looked at the pile of brightly colored and old-fashioned clothes beside her, suppressing the urge to roll my eyes. Even the ants dancing in the square probably dressed more like a college student than me. "Really? Since you like it, you can wear it," I said, and I went to the restroom to remove my makeup and changed into a simple white t-shirt and jeans. I ignored what Ella was saying behind me and just packed my school bag and went home. When I got home, the aunt had already prepared a table full of dishes, and the cake I had ordered in advance was placed on the dining table. Looking at my dad's hair without a single strand of gray, I felt a pang of sadness in my heart. In my previous life, I spent almost all my time on Mark, never caring about my dad and rarely going home to accompany him. Later, I insisted on marrying Mark despite his opposition, and I didn't even sign a prenuptial agreement. Because of Mark, my dad worried himself sick and was even hospitalized. After my dad was hospitalized, Mark used my pregnancy as an excuse to make me leave the company and stay home to take care of the baby. By the time I started to suspect Mark, it was too late. Mark had secretly swallowed my shares and turned my family's company into his own. When my dad learned about all this, he was so angry that his condition deteriorated rapidly. Before long, he left me. Thinking of this, my throat seemed to be blocked by something, and I choked out, "Dad." Tears welled up in my eyes. My dad looked at me in confusion, not knowing why I was suddenly crying so sadly. He gently patted my shoulder and comforted me tenderly. Okay. Don't cry. Did you get bullied at school? Tell Dad. And Dad will stand up for you." I wiped away my tears and forced a smile. "No. I just missed you. That experience was like a nightmare, making me miserable. This time, I will never let the past repeat itself. I won't let go of anyone who has ever hurt us." 2. Jocelyn. "I've made inquiries for you. Mark has a speech contest tomorrow. I'll accompany you to wait for him at the door. After he wins the award, you can take the opportunity to confess. And he will definitely say yes. Ella excitedly came up to me, her big eyes blinking, looking like she was really thinking for me. In my previous life, I did exactly as she said. However, Mark didn't win the award in that speech. Already in a bad mood for not getting the bonus, my confession was more like an insult to him. Facing the jeers of the classmates around, Mark refused with a gloomy face. Could you please stay away from me? I became a joke in others' eyes again. In my previous life, instigated by Ella, I confessed to Mark no less than 20 times in total, becoming the well-known bootlicker in the school. In my previous life, she was like this, with a dirty heart hidden under an innocent appearance. My acquaintance with Ella could be traced back to primary school. At that time, we were neighbors. We went to the same junior high school, and university. Ella almost became the closest person to me in my life, apart from my dad. However, I will never forget that night when she walked into my house with her head held high. Ella was affectionately arm in arm with Mark, triumphantly announcing like a mistress, "My man and my home. These things that once belonged to you now belong to me." Thinking carefully, having fulfilled my desire, Ella had clearly been hooking up with Mark for a long time. They were in cahoots, aiming to take away the family property that originally belonged to me. "This is my home. Get out of here," I shouted angrily, but my voice involuntarily trembled. Ella snorted contemptuously, having fulfilled my desire, her smile becoming even more complacent. "Do you still think you're that high and mighty, young lady? I've always hated your self-important look." I took a deep breath and turned my gaze to Mark, hoping to get a little pity from him. "Mark, can you bear to abandon the child in my belly? He's your own flesh and blood." Mark showed a look of disgust, and Ella added fuel to the fire beside him, her smile even more mocking. "What child? Do you really think you're pregnant? It's all fake. Otherwise, how could you be willing to quit the board of directors?" I looked at her in disbelief, then turned to Mark, my voice trembling so much that it was almost inaudible. You knew it all along, didn't you?" Mark didn't answer, just turned his face away indiferently. I was kicked out of the house before I even had time to change my clothes. Tears blurred my eyes, and I didn't know where I could go. Late at night, penniless and wearing only thin pajamas, I walked on the quiet and deserted street. The cold wind was howling. All around were cold walls, and closed doors and windows. I felt as if I was abandoned by the whole world. Suddenly, Ella's so-called cousin appeared from the corner. His eyes were full of greed and lust, and he had evil intentions towards me. During my struggle with him, he accidentally stabbed a knife into my abdomen. I fell on the corner and couldn't get up again. I closed my eyes and had a very long dream. In the dream, my dad and I returned to our home, which was once filled with laughter and joy. There were no more quarrels, only warmth and happiness. My consciousness gradually blurred. My body became heavy and stiff, and I could no longer move. My life came to an abrupt end like a withered flower on that cold night. 3. I'm not going. There are classes tomorrow. Now that nothing has happened yet, there's still time. Ella continued to persuade me. When you're in college, you should fall in love. If you like someone, of course you have to do your best to win them over. I don't like Mark anymore. Ella was stunned for a moment, then quickly regained her smile. "Oh, Jocelyn, emailed, don't be shy. I know you won't give up easily. I'll definitely help you. I know you're thin-skinned. It doesn't matter." Chapter 2. I interrupted her impatiently. "Ella, why are you always so obsessed with Mark? If you're really interested in him, then go after him yourself. I won't have any objections." Ella shut up this time and didn't say anything more. I tidied up my books and walked straight past her to the library. In my previous life, I wasted most of my time chasing after a guy. I hardly attended any classes throughout the 4-year college life. In the end, I even had to postpone my graduation for a year because I didn't have enough credits. I can't be slack this time. Given a second chance at life, I want to finish college, graduate smoothly, and get my diploma. I found it very difficult to study. After not studying for so many years, I felt sleepy just looking at the textbooks. After the evening self-study, I returned to the dormitory. When Ella saw me, she immediately put down her phone and walked towards me with a smile. Jocelyn, you're back. I specially reserved a table at your favorite Japanese restaurant. Let's go there together after class tomorrow. I didn't respond. I put down my school bag and took out the study committee members' notes. Ella started talking on her own. Jocelyn, you really misunderstood me. I'm not interested in Mark. I know you like him. And I won't compete with you. We're best friends. How can you ignore me just because of a guy? As she spoke, her eyes turned red, as if she was sad about my misunderstanding. Pretending to be weak is her usual trick. She's good at pretending to be a victim in front of others. Come on, lady. Haven't you had enough of this act? I tried my best to hold back the urge to roll my eyes. Can't you understand what I'm saying? I said I don't like Mark. Why do you keep bringing him up? Don't think I don't know what's on your mind. Tears rolled down Ella's cheeks. Jocelyn. I really didn't think that much. I did everything for you. Since you said you don't like Mark, I won't mention him again. I took a deep breath, tried hard to suppress my nausea, and forced a smile. Okay, filled discussion. Let's not quarrel over a guy. Okay? I pulled out a tissue and handed it to her. Let's go have dinner together after class tomorrow. For in the Japanese restaurant. Ella enthusiastically ordered several dishes that I liked and started talking about our past. Do you remember that summer? We went to the beach together. It was really a happy time. Her voice was full of nostalgia. As if we really had a wonderful summer at the beach. I remember it clearly. I was in the 3rd grade of primary school at that time. My dad took me to the beach as a reward. And I begged him to take Ella with us. Ella excitedly told me that day that she had found a beach where we could catch small crabs and pick up shells. I followed her and secretly got rid of the adults. I saw many cute-shaped shells. I was so focused on picking them up, filled with joy. When I turned back to look for Ella, I found that I was the only one on the whole beach. Apart from the sound of the waves hitting the rocks, there was nothing else. I started to get scared and anxiously ran back along the original path. When I finally ran back to the hotel, I angrily questioned Ella why she left me alone on the beach. Ella didn't seem to realize my anger and just casually said, I thought you'd catch up. I watched her affectionately and naturally get lost in memories. As if the argument last night had never happened. To be honest, I kind of admire her. Some people's faces are incredibly thick. When it was time to pay the bill, you naturally reported my mobile phone number. I'm a regular customer of this restaurant. And I've recharged a lot of money on my membership card. The waiter was about to settle the bill. I looked at Ella in confusion. Wait. Didn't you say you'd invite me to dinner? Why are you reporting my membership number? A hint of embarrassment flashed across Ella's face. And then she stammered an explanation. Jocelyn, this meal costs over 1,000 yuan. And you need to have a membership card to pay in this restaurant. You know, I'm not as rich as you. I didn't have the patience to play along with her act. I shook off her arm that was on me. Don't treat people like fools. Ella. You said you'd invite me to dinner. Not that I wanted to come myself. I've never heard of inviting someone to dinner and then asking the person being invited to pay the bill. Your calculations are really shrewd. In my previous life, Ella often invited others to eat here and always used my membership card to pay the bill. She spent my money and took the credit. Ella's face instantly turned pale. She didn't expect me to embarrass her so directly in public. I stood in front of the counter, impatiently urging her to pay the bill and leave quickly. People around started to cast curious glances. And the receptionist also began to look at Ella with a scrutinizing gaze. Ella had to take out her phone, gritted her teeth, spent 10,000 yuan to get a membership card, and paid the bill. As soon as we left the restaurant, Ella quickly left me behind and hailed a taxi in a hurry. Ella cares a lot about face. What happened just now was undoubtedly like being slapped in the face in public for her. She probably won't come to this restaurant to eat again. But can't she take it? After that day, Ella kept quiet for a while. But she always gave me a cold look whenever she saw me. I just pretended not to notice, and kept to a 3.1-line routine of the teaching building, library, and cafeteria every day. Chapter 3:5 Hello, classmate. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I've seen you here quite often recently. I really want to get to know you. Can I add you on WeChat? There was also a string of WeChat IDs written below. I was so excited that my hands were shaking as I looked at the familiar handwriting on the note. This note was written by Mark. In my previous life, after seeing my dad drive me to school in a Rolls-Royce, Mark accepted my pursuit. At first, I naively thought that my sincerity and persistence had finally touched him. However, after we got together, Mark repeatedly and casually inquired about my family situation. He also talked about the person who sent me back to school that night out of nowhere. Although I found it strange, I told him the truth. During that period, Mark was extremely considerate to me. He would greet me every morning without fail and say goodnight before going to bed. He was constantly showing concern, buying me breakfast and ordering late-night snacks. I was so delighted by his cheap tricks. Hard work pays off. I took a deep breath and without hesitation, casually threw the small note into the trash can. This was just a small test. I merely asked my dad to drive me to and from school a few times. And the fish took the bait. Mark is indeed a vain man who is eager to climb the social ladder. A so-called Phoenix man, who only wants to attach himself to the rich. In the following few days, I didn't receive any more notes from Mark. However, one night, he stopped me downstairs of the library. Mark was holding a bunch of bright red roses in his hand, with a faint smile on his face. I clenched my fists, desperately suppressing the hatred in my heart. I pretended not to know him and put on a surprised expression. He took a few steps forward and held the roses in front of me. Hello, classmate. I'm Mark, a junior from the Department of Finance. I don't know if you've heard of me, but the first time I saw you in the library, my heart raced, and I was deeply attracted to you. That night, I wrote you a note, but I didn't get a reply for a long time. I know this may sound a bit abrupt, but I really don't want to miss this opportunity. I hope you can accept these flowers and give me a chance to pursue you. If you're willing, we can start as friends and get to know each other gradually. I looked up at him. The face that once made my heart flutter seemed so strange now. In my previous life, I had dreamed of such a scene countless times. However, now I only felt hypocrisy and nausea. Thank you for the flowers. I tried my best to make my voice sound calm and polite. I don't have any plans to fall in love right now. I turned around and walked towards the dormitory. Mark behind me didn't seem to be ready to give up. He followed closely, trying to continue talking to me. I let him follow me and send me back downstairs of the dormitory. This scene couldn't help but make me feel a bit ironic. In the past, I was eager to get his attention and always chased after him. Now, it was him pestering me. It was my own stupidity. I didn't see his true face clearly and was blinded by such a person. Never again from now on. Chapter 4:6 As soon as I entered the door, I was surrounded by two roommates. Doris looked at me with a gossipy look and teased. Someone had an amorous encounter today. Vivian, on the other hand, excitedly shook my shoulders, her face full of curiosity. Quickly tell us the truth. We all saw it. I was so dizzy from being shaken that I had to briefly describe what happened. After hearing this, the two of them became even more excited and started discussing one after another. However, to be honest, thinking that he can win a girl's heart with just a note and a bunch of flowers is a bit too naive. Our Jocelyn is so beautiful and comes from a good family. In my opinion, only Hector is worthy of her. Hector, the campus heartthrob of our school, is not only handsome but also has excellent academic performance. He wins the excellent scholarship every year. The two of them became more and more exaggerated, and their words revealed envy and affirmation of me. At this moment, Ella happened to push the door in. A flash of jealousy crossed her face. Immediately, a bright smile bloomed on Ella's face, and she came over affectionately. She pretended not to know and asked, "Jocelyn, What were you guys talking about just now? You seem so happy. I changed the topic. Nothing much. Just chatting casually. Doris and Vivian exchanged a look, smiled tacitly, and didn't say anything more. Jocelyn, are you free tomorrow night? We haven't had a meal together for a long time. I tried my best to suppress the joy in my heart and replied with a smile. Sure. I'm free. Why don't we go to my favorite Japanese restaurant? Coincidentally, you've got a membership card there too. I watched as Ella was clearly furious inside but still pretended to be calm on the surface. I secretly felt a sense of pleasure. The next night, I arrived at the Japanese restaurant as promised. Ella was sitting by the window. As soon as she saw me, she immediately waved to me. Jocelyn. She enthusiastically handed me a glass of water. Try this. This jasmine tea is very fragrant. It does smell good. I took it, smelled it, and casually put it aside, then lowered my head to study the menu. This is a newly launched dish. Do you want to give it a try? Anything is fine. You can order. Ella seemed a bit absent-minded and just replied casually. After ordering the food, I habitually took out my phone to order a cup of milk tea for delivery. Ella said, "Don't order milk tea. Milk tea has a high sugar content and is easy to make you gain weight. It's better to drink tea." After saying that, she pushed the cup in front of me again. Suddenly, a passing man accidentally spilled watermelon juice on Ella. Her white dress was instantly stained with a large red patch, and some of it even poured directly on her. "I'm sorry." A deep and apologetic voice sounded in our ears. Ella's face darkened slightly, and she was about to flare up, but when she looked up and saw who it was, she suddenly froze. It was Hector. He was staring at Ella's soiled dress with a face full of apology. "I'm really sorry. I'll take care of the cleaning," Hector said sincerely and quickly explained the situation to the waiter. After a while, the waiter brought a spare dress. Ella couldn't vent her anger and tried to say calmly, "It's okay. I'll go to the restroom to deal with it." After saying that, she took the dress and turned to walk towards the restroom. Chapter 5-7. I sat quietly in the chair, witnessing everything that had just happened. Suddenly, Hector walked up to me with a serious expression. He lowered his voice and said word by word, "You can't drink this water. I don't know if she's your friend, but I saw her put something in the water with my own eyes before you came." I know. I snorted. As soon as I sat down, I noticed that Ella's expression was a bit off. She seemed restless. She never drinks jasmine tea, but today she kept praising how good it was. I pretended to order milk tea to test her. And sure enough, she stopped me, which made me even more certain of my suspicion. Such a clumsy trick. So she really thought I was a fool. You know? Hector was a bit surprised by my reaction. He slightly narrowed his eyes and a playful expression appeared on his face. "What do you want to do? Do you need me to call the police for you?" "No. Thank you." I quietly switched the positions of the cup in front of me and Ella's. Hector sat down next to me, gave me a meaningful look, and didn't comment on my behavior. Ella came out of the restroom. She had changed into a new dress. Hector stood up, nodded politely to Ella, and he left his contact information and left with the soiled dress. Ella sat back in front of me, not noticing anything unusual. She picked up the cup in front of her and took a big sip. We continued having dinner. Ella's cheeks flushed unnaturally, and sweat kept streaming down her forehead. She kept fanning herself with her hand, trying to cool down, and even asked the waiter to come and lower the air conditioner temperature. When it was time to pay the bill, Ella's eyes were blurred, and she was already disoriented. Her face was as red as if she was drunk, and even her neck was dyed a large red patch. I took a taxi and took her to a hotel, and quickly checked her in. After settling Ella down, I took out her phone, unlocked it and made a backup. Subsequently, I found a contact named Jack on WeChat. Ella always said this person was her cousin, but later I found out he was actually just a hooligan. Several times when Ella invited him to a dinner together, he would always look at me with a flirtatious and sleazy gaze, making me feel very uncomfortable. My fingers quickly tapped on the keyboard and I sent him a text message. It only contained the hotel address and a room number. After the message was successfully sent, I deleted it. One day, a striking post appeared on the school's confession wall. There was only a blurry side face photo in the post. The surrounding environment was dim, and the obvious flush on the woman's face was extremely dazzling in the darkness. The content on the confession wall was full of insults. The poster claimed to have accidentally seen a short video and learned that the protagonist in the video was a female student from our school and was asking for a relationship. Finally, he arrogantly threatened that if this female student didn't contact him actively, he would expose more of the video content in 3 days. As soon as the post went up, it immediately went viral. Chapter 6. Some people were angrily condemning the poster for having bad intentions and spreading rumors on purpose. Some were speculating about who the protagonist was. There were even some despicable men leaving messages in the comment section, trying to get the so-called resources. For a while, various voices and viewpoints intertwined, becoming the hottest topic on campus recently. These men are really disgusting. They're actually asking for resources in the comments. Yeah, ahahaha. This girl is so pitiful. She actually met such a person while dating. Really? There's someone for every kind of scumbag. Doris and Vivian were discussing this matter heatedly in the dormitory. Ella suddenly pulled open the bed curtain. Her face deathly pale, with suppressed malice in her eyes. She loudly interrupted their discussion. Can you be quieter? Can't you see I'm sleeping? Doris and Vivian were startled. They exchanged a look and lowered their voices to complain. Is she crazy? Don't know what's wrong with her. Come on. Let's go have dinner. After the two left, Ella stared at me viciously. You did this. Right. I looked up and met her gaze. No. Ella said affirmatively, adding fulfilled. You found out that day. Right? I won't let you go. You just wait. I burst out laughing. Yeah. Thanks to you for drugging the cup. Now you're reaping what you sowed. You deserve it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Otherwise, I'd have to rack my brains to create one myself. I have the surveillance footage. Do you want me to call the police for you? Oh, by the way, I should remind you that the surveillance in the store was broken that day, and it only recorded the first half. Her face turned gloomy, and she trembled as she lunged at me. I was well prepared and nimbly dodged, avoiding her attack. At the same time, I forcefully kicked her to the ground. I quickly stepped forward, grabbed her hair tightly, and without hesitation, raised my hand. A clear slapping sound echoed in the air as I gave her two resounding slaps. Ella covered her face and looked up. Her eyes were red. She hugged my leg, crying and kowtowing. Jocelyn, Lai. Please. I know I was wrong. Forgive me. Okay? We're best friends. I'll listen to you from now on. Please don't post that video. Okay? Ella cried herself hoarse. If someone else were present at this moment, they would surely cast accusing glances at me. I remained unmoved and coldly watched Ella perform in front of me. You're so good at acting. It's a pity you're not an actress. You know you're wrong now. Why didn't you think about it when you drugged me? If I had really drunk that drugged water, would you have let me go? Since you've done something wrong, you have to pay the price. After saying that, I turned around and left, leaving Ella alone in the dormitory. Chapter 7-9. The next day, several more photos were conspicuously updated on the confession wall, seemingly urging the protagonist in the video. I observed Ella's expression. Although her face was a bit pale, she wasn't as flustered as yesterday. Ella walked very fast, and she didn't even care when she bumped into people in a hurry. I quietly followed her to the rooftop of the teaching building. Mark was waiting for her there. The night at the hotel, I backed up Ella's phone. I found out that she and Mark had been hooking up much earlier than I thought. After I rejected Mark's pursuit that day, Mark turned his target to Ella. Well, Ella is sweet-looking and never spares any expense on maintaining and dressing up her appearance. She posts pictures of designer bags, the gym, and afternoon tea on her WeChat moments. Every photo and caption is carefully designed. In my previous life, when I stood with her, everyone would think she was the daughter of a wealthy family, It's reasonable that Mark would be bewitched by Ella's appearance. We shouldn't meet again in the future. Mark's cold voice came. Why? Mark frowned. The woman in the photo is you. Right? Ella slightly raised her chin. Her eyes full of mockery. So what if it is? Don't tell me you have some ridiculous virginity complex. It's just a matter of getting what we each want. Just for fun. Mark looked at her. Snorted. And said coldly. If that's the case. Let's make things clear. Don't think I don't know your true identity. Your mother is just a cleaning lady in our school. You actually lied to me that she was a university professor teaching abroad all year round. Pretending to be a rich girl. What a joke. I was really blind to be deceived by a woman like you. Ella's face froze. Then she sneered. Her expression almost crazy. What about you? You approached Jocelyn. Wasn't it for her money and status? Don't act high and mighty in front of me. What right do you have to question me? How much better are you? You're just a self-centered Phoenix man. A gigolo who wants to climb up the social ladder by relying on women. You were the one who came to provoke me first. Now that I'm no longer useful to you. You want to dump me? Dream on. Mark was hit where it hurt. He thought Ella was simply unreasonable and didn't want to talk to her anymore. However, Ella suddenly pounced on him and bit him hard on the arm. Mark angrily shook off Ella. And the two argued and cursed on the rooftop, completely immersed in blaming each other. The two became more and more excited and unconsciously approached the edge of the rooftop. The cold wind howled, blowing their hair and clothes loudly. At the moment when Mark pushed hard, Ella tumbled a few steps and hit the railing. Mark wanted to leave, but Ella, as if determined, tightly grabbed his clothes and refused to let go. The railing on the top floor of the school was in disrepair and had long been loose. It couldn't bear the weight of two people at all. Click, a harsh cracking sound rang out. Ella instantly lost her balance and her body lurched backward. Mark was caught off guard and was also dragged down by her. The two of them drew an arc in the air and landed heavily on the hard cement ground. I left the rooftop before the ambulance arrived. Chapter 8:10. I don't think this dress suits me. The person was actually a hooligan from another school. All we know is his nickname is Jack. After investigation by the public security organs, it was found that he was actually linked to a recent burglary case. Not only that, but Jack was also found to have connections with the local underworld. With multiple crimes combined for punishment, he was finally sentenced to 10 years in prison. Truly, what goes around comes around. Everything has settled down. Those who once hurt me have ultimately paid the price. I walked to the window and took a deep breath. No matter what I may encounter in the future, I will move forward more bravely. Jocelyn, come home for dinner tonight. Looking at the text message from my dad on my phone, my heart was filled with relief and peace. I have a dad who loves me and a warm little family. And that's enough. However, when I stepped into the house, I realized that tonight was not just a simple family dinner. So, this is a carefully arranged blind date, I thought to myself. I greeted the elders at the table with a smile, walked to the seat next to my dad and sat down. Then looked at the guy sitting across from me. Hector was dressed very formally today. The white shirt gave him an air of a gentle gentleman. There was a faint smile on his lips. And he extended his hand to me in a gentlemanly manner. Like the warm sun in spring. After graduation, I applied for a postgraduate program in the United States with excellent grades. After graduating from postgraduate school, I inherited my dad's company and founded my own brand. Now, I have a successful career, a handsome boyfriend, and am about to form a warm family. I looked at Hector, who was kneeling on one knee in front of me. There was a faint smile on his lips. He was holding flowers in his hand and reaching out to me. Just like that night, many years ago. At this moment, with my kind-hearted father by my side and my beloved of many years in front of me, I felt a happiness like never before. Will you marry me? I reached out my hand, nodded with a smile and said, I do.